Prosecutors in the Oscar Pistorius case appeal what they call his shockingly light 5-year sentence. Scientists get ever closer to finding a cure for AIDS. And a nature special gets big ratings, but some viewers are left feeling cheated. Africa 54 starts right now.
Hello and welcome. I'm Vincent McCory. This is Africa 54. Now, the United States has tightened security at its overseas diplomatic facilities and military installations as the Senate Intelligence Committee releases its report on the CIA's interrogation techniques. Now, the White House is supporting Tuesday's release despite warnings by some officials and lawmakers that it could lead to a backlash against Americans worldwide. VOA's Zlatsa Hoke has more.
The report is expected to reveal new gruesome details about the CIA's harsh interrogation techniques following the September 11, 2001 terrorist attacks on the United States.
The purpose of this review was to uncover the facts behind this secret program. And the results, I think, were shocking. The report exposes brutality that stands in stark contrast to our values as a nation.
Some officials and Congress members are concerned that extremist groups will use the findings to support their anti-American agenda.
They don't have to be accurate or right. They just have to believe it's true. And they'll take advantage of that. We know that ISIL propaganda operations, this is the mother lode for them.
The U.S. military has put thousands of troops on alert ahead of the expected release of the 6,000-page report, fearing attacks on U.S. missions abroad.
This will, in fact, incite violence, and it's likely to cost someone their life.
The administration of former President George W. Bush came under heavy criticism when some details surfaced about harsh techniques used in the CIA's secret prisons abroad following the September 11 attacks. The prisons were subsequently closed, but the new report is expected to reveal that the program continued even after being proven ineffective. Former CIA Director Michael Hayden rejected that allegation in remarks to CBS Television's Face the Nation program.
To say that we relentlessly, over an expanded period of time, lied to everyone about a program that wasn't doing any good, that beggars the imagination.
President Barack Obama earlier this year acknowledged that some of the techniques amounted to torture.
We tortured some folks. We did some things that were contrary to our values.
The White House says the president supports the release of the report by the Senate Intelligence Committee.
The administration strongly supports the release of this declassified summary of the report. The president, on his first or second day in office, took the steps using executive action to put an end to the tactics that are described in the report.
The report is said to detail such extreme interrogation techniques as sleep deprivation and waterboarding, which simulates drowning. Zlatsa Hoke, VOA News, Washington.
Well, a South African judge is expected to rule Wednesday on a prosecution request to appeal her verdict against Oscar Pistorius. Judge Tokosila Masipa heard arguments Tuesday in the same Pretoria courtroom where in October she found Pistorius guilty of manslaughter in the shooting death of his girlfriend Reeva Steenkamp and sentenced him to 5 years in prison. Pistorius was not in court Tuesday as prosecutor Gerrie Nel discussed his objections.
Easy task to bring an application, a valid argument, at least for this court to find that there's a reasonable prospect that we may convince the Supreme Court of Appeal to accept the fact that in this particular case, the question of the accused's intention is a legal question and not a factual question.
Well, Judge Masipa ruled that prosecutors did not prove the shooting was premeditated and absolved Pistorius of more serious murder charges. He is currently serving his 5-year sentence for culpable homicide at a prison in Pretoria. His lawyers say he could be released to house arrest within a year. Now, the success of fighting crime in any community demands effective communication between law enforcement agents and citizens. Our visiting reporter, Annie Thompson from Nigeria's Channels TV, had a first-hand experience of this and now shares her story.
By Tuesday, November 11, 2014, I had spent 5 weeks in the United States, where I had come for a 3-month exchange program between Channels Television and the Voice of America. My residence is in Baltimore, downtown Baltimore, from where I commute to Washington, D.C., the office of VOA. The neighborhood is calm and has apartments for mostly the working class group. They're out in the mornings and back home in the evenings, a routine applicable to me. On this particular day, I'd gone to bed at about 11 p.m. and I'd slept off almost immediately, only to be awakened at about 1 a.m. by some scratching noises. So I stood up and looked towards the window and saw a hand making away with my handbag. I was too late to get it, so I just called the police. The individual had climbed up to my apartment through the fire escape behind the building.
A citizen has, let's say, for instance, a burglary. They're going to place a call to 911. So it goes through the dispatch center, the 911 dispatch center, and then the dispatch center places the call out to the correct district. In your particular case with your burglary, it was the central district.
All these happened within 10 minutes in my case, and 2 officers were at my residence.
When we get on the scene, we want to meet with the involved victim and witnesses of the incident. And such as in your incident, since you were a victim of a burglary, we want to see if we can get a description of the suspect, also a description of any items that were taken.
It got even better when 2 days later, a citizen found my bag with all my valuables, including my tablet, with just the cash missing, and gave it to the police. I have long claimed my property with a promise that I will claim the cash after it's been used as evidence in court. My case shows a cordial relationship between the police and the community, a sharp contrast to the event in Ferguson, Missouri, where a young teenager, Michael Brown, was shot dead by police officer Darren Wilson. After the decision of the grand jury not to indict the officer, there's been protests in many parts of the country. Violent in Ferguson, but peaceful in places like the capital, Washington.
We must love each other and protect each other. We must love each other and protect each other.
Annie Thompson reporting for VOA News, Washington, D.C.
One of the recent decisions not to charge 2 white police officers in the separate deaths of 2 black men still has tensions high across America. Some say the deaths reveal great divisions between the police and some residents of color. Well, meantime, VOA's Caroline Presutti shows us how 2 police departments are trying to bridge the gap through technology.
Corporal Scott Kreger clips on a device that is as natural as putting on his police uniform. It's a wearable camera. The Laurel, Maryland Police Department has 30 of these cameras mounted on the glasses of their patrol officers. It's something the Ferguson, Missouri white police officer never had when he shot and killed a black man, setting off riots in that town and around the country. Corporal Kreger says a body camera might have changed the outcome.
People could have reviewed it and seen it immediately what really happened, and then there would be no question.
And here's how. When Corporal Kreger makes a traffic stop, he turns the camera on, informs the driver of his violation, and says,
"Also want to let you know that you're being recorded right now, audio and visually, okay, with my camera."
Here's how that looks from his angle.
"I need to get your license and registration, please."
Corporal Kreger can check the video through an app on his phone when he returns to his cruiser, but he cannot alter it in any way. He says on the streets, the tiny camera is an attitude diffuser.
People knowing that the cameras are there could possibly change their actions, their demeanor, whether they're going to be belligerent towards us or they're going to be compliant with us.
The Ferguson response prompted a White House initiative to equip more departments with these devices. President Obama's plan provides 50,000 body cameras to police departments around the country so that officers can record interactions with the public and then use the video as evidence. Police Chief Richard McLaughlin says these cameras are the future.
I think it's mending fences. And I think what you're going to see at some point, maybe a year, 5 years, 10 years down the road, when an officer crosses the stage for his certificate, when he's given his badge and his gun, he will also be given a camera.
Half an hour away, Lieutenant T.J. Smith is tweeting. The Anne Arundel County Police Department lets residents know what crimes are occurring. They ask their followers on Facebook and Twitter for tips, and the 44,000 they call social media sleuths come through.
We let them know that they helped us solve that crime, and to watch them literally give virtual high fives. And it just is a sense of community, it's a sense of ownership.
Smith says one suspect taunted police online, suggesting they'd never find him. A sleuth posted a tip, and
the very next day, we were able to put up that banner.
Lieutenant Smith says most citizens want to keep their communities safe, so this type of transparency and cooperation prompts respect on both sides. Carolyn Presutti, VOA News.
Well, now to Uganda and the East African nation's plan to build its first ever car. Africa 54's Paul Ndiho visited the car manufacturer, and he's here to tell us all about it. Paul?
Thanks, Vincent. Engineers at Uganda's Kira Eve Motors Corporation recently unveiled a prototype of its sedan hybrid electronic vehicle, dubbed the Kira Eve Smart. The car manufacturer is slated to start commercial production of the Kira Eve brand vehicles and passenger buses by 2018. People are likely to ask, what kind of car is that? And the answer is, it's the Kira Eve Smart, an improved version of the Kira Eve car that was first unveiled in 2011. For those who dare to be bold, the Kira Eve Smart has a striking design, one that commands attention. Kira Motors Corporation recently gave the Voice of America exclusive behind-the-scenes access. So let's get inside for a test drive. It drives and feels like any regular sedan on the market. And for those who had any doubts, it's time to let everyone know that this sedan has arrived. Kira Motors is a Ugandan government project under the Presidential Initiative for Science and Technology Innovations program. The project is aimed at establishing a framework for commercial production of Ugandan-made cars. Dr. Sandy Stevens Tagboa is the executive director of the Kira Eve project.
We're now targeting the third quarter of 2018, when we think we should begin to roll out, say, about 300 of these cars off the assembly line. But we're creating a capacity of about 850 per year as a start.
The 5-seater sedan is powered by a rechargeable battery, and it also has an internal combustion engine-based generator, which charges the battery.
All these were installed here manually. We haven't had any automation at all in this place. And this is young people you see around here who are involved in this.
Paul Isaac Musasizi, Chief Innovation and Technology Officer of Kira Motors, says that Kira Eve Smart has impressive power and is designed to thrill.
The Kira Smart platform is a platform which comes with 3 powertrain options: the conventional ICE powertrain, the full electric vehicle powertrain, and the hybrid electric vehicle powertrain, which this concept actually is.
Once in mass production, Kira Eve Smart will be available in 3 packaging options: the 2-door, the 4-door or full-size sedan, and the 5-door hatchback. This car was recently displayed at a public exhibition in Nairobi, Kenya. Akuvuku Albert is the Chief Operating Officer.
We needed to seek partnerships, working with other stakeholders. If, for instance, there are people in Nairobi, Kenya, manufacturing glasses for cars, we don't have to reinvent the wheel and manufacture glasses here.
Kira Eve Smart is sleek with leather interior and smooth transition lines across the vehicle. The creative team at Kira Motors has the capacity, the drive, and the passion to make this dream a reality. Doreen Orishaba is one of the engineers.
Very exciting to be part of such a team that is going to transform Uganda.
Meanwhile, Chira Motors already has its sights set on expanding the brand to include 32 solar-powered Kayola passenger buses. Kayola Bus is another innovation made by Ugandans for Ugandans. Industry analysts say Kampala's fast-growing population and rapid urban development has meant more cars on the road, and having locally manufactured passenger buses could ease the crush of people using public transportation. In my next report, I will take you to southwestern Uganda, where a group of more than 200 women are training and dedicated to weaving masterpieces. Back to you, Vincent.
Thanks a lot, Paul, for that great report. Now we want to know what you think about Africa 54 and the stories we cover. Join the conversation on Facebook. The address is Africa 54. And check out our headlines 24/7 on voaafrica.com. Coming up, could a cure for AIDS be closer than ever? Stay with us.
Ebola is not a curse or spiritual infection. It is a deadly disease, a fever spread by contact with the body fluids of infected people. I am Dr. Kande Greaves. Its symptoms start with a fever, fatigue, and muscle pain. Within a few days, vomiting and diarrhea sets in, and victims lose about 4 liters of body fluid each day. Ebola is highly infectious. If you experience any of these symptoms, seek medical help immediately. You must wash your hands regularly. Do not eat or handle bushmeat. Stay away from people suffering from Ebola. And do not handle the bodies of Ebola victims. If you have had contact with someone who has Ebola, you need to have your temperature monitored daily for any change. Early diagnosis and treatment is critical to your survival. Learn the facts about Ebola. Knowledge is life.
Welcome back. Now, scientists searching for a cure for AIDS say they have uncovered the basic chemistry of the HIV virus, and that now the most likely strategy for fighting the disease will be attacking it with another virus. VOA's George Putich reports.
Surrounded by over 1,000 species of plants, a myriad of colorful insects, animals found in a few other places in the world, Rene Gongo's childhood was filled with wonder. Of all these
Well, we had a little problem with that report there. Maybe we'll share it with you another time. But the majority of HIV researchers agreed that the virus evolved at some point from the closely related simian immunodeficiency virus, SIV, and that the SIV, which mutated into HIV, was transferred from chimpanzees and gorillas to humans in the recent past. Now, to tell us more about that, I'm joined by Eugene Atte, research lead specialist at the Institute of Human Virology, University of Maryland's School of Medicine. Mr. Atte, welcome to Africa 54.
Thank you, Vincent.
Yes. Now, let's go to the basics. You know, according to what you guys call the transfer theory, or sometimes it's also been referred to as the hunter theory or the bushmeat theory. The basic kind of explanation to how this happened is that somebody went and caught some animal, and somehow the blood from that animal transferred the virus to the human being. Can you give us some further insights into that?
Thank you, Mr. Vincent. In the world of viruses, we have two extremes. We have what we know about viruses and what we don't know about viruses. And in between these two extremes, we have the window. This window of opportunity is being exploited by scientists to get down to the root cause of how viruses that used to be normal flora in animals turn out to be pathogens in humans. And we call this, in scientific jargon, zoonosis. These are animals which are well adapted these are viruses that are well adapted in the animal community, but for one reason or another, there is a jump. And one of the reasons for this jump is because of human encroachment into the living space of animals.
Yeah. Now before even you think about the encroachment, I mean, the encroachment is bringing this contact a little even closer, but there has always been that contact. There are people who have been actually literally eating these animals. Why weren't they infected in the past?
Let's take, for example, the case of Ebola. Ebola has been out there since 1976 in Zaire, in Gabon, in Sudan. But the problem is it was affecting people within close communities in the rainforest. So most of the cases went unreported or underreported. This is the first time the Ebola virus has actually struck in the West African region out of the rainforest. And at this point, it happened at a road junction that connects 3 countries that have poor health infrastructures, they have poor communication mechanisms, and the situation in those countries are worsened off by bad governance.
Now, we see there's a similarity, of course, and I was going to ask you about that between the Ebola and HIV virus, because they both are known to have kind of jumped from chimpanzees or animals, and because of Ebola, other animals, to humans. But there's a question, like when you talk about HIV a little bit, it says like, how do you explain, for example, that the HIV groups that have infected mankind, the HIV-1 and HIV-2, spread so considerably in human beings in those regions where those animals had existed before, but in such a simultaneous way and happened in such a vicious way? What is the explanation?
If you look at HIV, it came into prominence because of the discovery of the virus in people living in the West. And then when they started tracing back, they realized that when people started encroaching into the African rainforest with the rail tracks, the virus came into the human population and there was a smoldering tendency. It was there undetected until when it became a full-blown, when there was a nidus. A nidus is what we call the seed of a cluster of people who serve as the springboard for the virus to get hold into many other people within the community. And because of poor reporting, first there was this issue of denial. Like I said, the window of opportunity was some sort of exploited by those who had conspiracy theories. And that brought a lot of setback in the fight against the control of the HIV virus.
Okay, and we might in the future get an opportunity to talk about how understanding this helps in the search for cure. Mr. Ate, thank you very much for sharing this with us. Well, Eugene Ate is a research lead specialist at the Institute of Human Virology at the University of Maryland's School of Medicine. Well, it's time now for a short break. Still to come on Africa 54. A Daredevil documentary gets massive ratings, but why are some viewers calling foul? We'll be right back.
And there's a reasonable prospect that we may.
Notre otage, Serge Lazarevich, notre dernier otage.
Appel solennel à François Hollande, président de la République française, de tout faire.
Welcome back to Africa 54. Here's what's trending. The Duke and Duchess of Kent continue to get the royal treatment during their U.S. visit. Now, Prince William made a brief stop at the White House on Monday for an Oval Office sit-down with President Barack Obama. The two men exchanged pleasantries surrounded by a crush of journalists before beginning their private talks. On Monday night, William and Kate met with the basketball royalty in New York. The couple met with the King James, as in LeBron, after watching a game between the Brooklyn Nets and the Cleveland Cavaliers. The Duke and Duchess were also presented with NBA jerseys, including a small one for their young son, Prince George. Well, next up, a nature documentary draws more than 4 million viewers, but some are crying foul. In the smash hit Duck Eaten Alive, naturalist Paul Rosalie ended his Amazon jungle encounter with a massive anaconda after it encircled his body and began squeezing. Wearing bulky protective gear, Rosalie escaped with just a sore arm, but uneaten. Now, responding to criticism, Discovery says Rosalie created the challenge to draw attention to an endangered part of the world, and it was his absolute intention to be eaten alive. But his safety and that of the snake were the top priority. Well, next up, a controversial performance art exhibit draws protests in France. Protesters are demanding the cancellation of the controversial exhibit showing black actors in cages. Now, the performance, called Exhibit B, is by white South African artist Brad Badley. It was previously cancelled in London after protests and a petition. Exhibit B is described as a look at the 19th and 20th century practice of placing people from the colonies in so-called human zoos for public amusement. And that is what is trending today. Well, that's our show for today. Be sure to watch Africa 54 on our website at voaafrica.com. For more news, tune in to VOA's evening radio show, Africa News Tonight at 1800 UTC, and in the mornings to Daybreak Africa between 0300 and 0600 UTC, Monday through Friday. Thanks a lot for watching from all of us here in Washington. Have a good night.
If you come into contact with the bodily fluids of a person infected with Ebola, you must wash with soap and water immediately. I'm Dr. Conde Greaves. The Ebola virus is only present in the blood, feces, vomit, breast milk, sweat, and semen of people who are seriously ill. The virus must get into your body to infect you. Do not touch your eyes, nose, or mouth, and cover any cuts on the skin. If you are caring for someone who has Ebola, do not handle bedding, towels, or clothes that may be soiled with bodily fluids without gloves. Avoid sexual activity with male survivors of Ebola. Men carry the virus in semen for up to 90 days. Ebola cannot survive for long outside the body. Sunlight, heat, Clorox, and alcohol will kill the virus. Know the facts about Ebola. Knowledge is life.